What's up, guys? Red Master Flex here. We are just 3 days away before the next upcoming WWE pay-per-view Extreme Rules, and I just wanted to give my predictions real quick on this pay-per-view right here. I know some people aren't too excited about it because some of the matches that we're getting on the show, uh, Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff are now taking executive roles on the main shows, and we saw a little taste of their executive roles, well, particularly Paul Heyman for the last two Raws, but this one was slightly a downfall from last week on Raw. But hopefully things start to pick back up next week, and we can really start to see them take shape for both shows. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So first off, I'm going to just go in a random order here. You have Aleister Black versus Cesaro. For weeks and for the past 2 to 3 months, uh, ever since WrestleMania, all we've seen is Aleister Black doing these vignettes backstage. Well, not backstage, but he's doing these things where he talks and does these promos and, say for someone to knock at his door and someone to pick a fight with him and all. And, it was about 2 weeks ago where we had someone knocking the door, and it turned out to be Cesaro. I think Aleister Black is going to win this match. You know, I wouldn't say this is the re-debut of Aleister Black, but given that he's been gone, we haven't really seen him wrestle since WrestleMania. That was the last time he actually was in a match where he was teaming with Ricochet after they lost to the Bar and the Usos um, in the Triple Threat Tag Team match for the oh yeah, Shinsuke. That Shinsuke and Ruth back in the Fatal 4 Tag Team match for the SmackDown Tag Team. After they lost that, we really didn't see much of Aleister Black. We knew that he was going to be a SmackDown guy, and we knew Ricochet was going on Raw, but we really didn't see him in the ring again. He kept doing these backstage skits and all this about picking a fight with him and stuff like that. So a lot of people are saying they think this match is going to steal the show, and it might just do that. I mean, we've already seen Aleister Black in the ring with Cesaro, but it was in a tag team match with Ricochet and the went against the Bar and stuff like that. So we've seen it happen, but this is the first time we're seeing Aleister Black go one on one with Cesaro you know, just in one on one action. I think this is going to be a great match. I think Aleister Black's going to come out on top, especially given that this is basically his re-debut since WrestleMania. This is his first time even on the card or pay-per-view or anything since then. But I definitely think both guys are going to give it at 100%, and Aleister Black's going to come out on top of that. So next up, you have uh, Drew Gulak versus Tony Nese. I think this match is pretty obvious. It's going to be on a pre-show. The one time that they did put the cruiserweights on the main card with Money in the Bank, and they didn't receive a well reaction from the fans. But what I find crazy is that it seems like every time they put on the pre-show, it seems like the people are more invested in the matches. But it's also because of who's involved with cruiserweights actually in the match. And one of the problems with the match they had on the main card, Money in the Bank, was that it was before he was going against Tony Nese. It wasn't really that high paced, fast action that you normally get. But for this match right here, I think it's pretty obvious that Drew Gulak is going to retain. I'm only talking about this match right now because they haven't fully decided what they're going to put on the pre-show. Otherwise, I would have skipped this match because I don't talk about pre-show matches. I mean, it's been known that there are times where pre-show matches are like amazing, and the last pre-show match they had at Stomping Grounds was an incredible triple threat. So it was a great triple threat match for the cruiserweight championship. So there's no question cruiserweights bust their ass off. But I just typically don't really talk about cruiserweight matches, but I mean pre-show matches. But for this one, uh, Drew Gulak is coming out on top. He's going to retain the cruiserweight Next up, you have uh, New Day, Big E, and Xavier versus Heavy Machinery versus Daniel Bryan and Eric Roman, or Rowan, that's what they call him now, but I still call him that. But SmackDown Tag Team titles. Now, this is a tricky one. Now, man, they have done a hell of a job with Heavy Machinery as of late. They've been winning a lot of matches. They've been getting a lot of TV time. They've really showed, especially Otis, really showed how powerful he can be. Tucker really showed how athletic he can be, especially when he went for the moonsault at Stomping Grounds when they went against Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan. And this is tricky. I think personally, I want the New Day. Here's the thing: I love Heavy Machinery, but I also love the New Day. Personally, I want the New Day to win only because I want to see all three members of the New Day with championship gold. Because every time we've seen a fraction, we normally will see, all three members or however many members with some gold on their waist. That's one of the reasons. But I think for this match right here, I think the favorite to win this, if Daniel Bryan and Eric don't retain, I think Heavy Machinery is going to win. If they don't retain the belts, Heavy Machinery is the favorite to win this. I think, this team right here, they've proven that they are a hell of a tag team. They got all the skills and they deserve it. I mean, I don't think they should win this quickly because, I mean, this is only the second time that Eric and Day are even defending their titles on pay per view. And they really haven't held them that long. They've only been champions for like 2 months. But the thing I'll give Daniel Bryan credit for is that he's really helped put the SmackDown Tag Team titles back on the map because after the Hardy Boys won the titles, they weren't even able to defend it because Jeff Hardy got injured and they had to relinquish the titles. And from there, they were the next guys to be champions. They were handed the title by Shane McMahon, but then they uh, actually ended up beating the Usos to affirmatively win their titles on SmackDown. So it's just like we haven't really seen them. This is only their second time being on the main card on pay per view. They were in a match at Money in the Bank, but it was in a pre-show. But I think for this right here, I said the favorite to win this might actually be. I think it's Heavy Machinery. If Daniel and Eric don't retain, I really think Heavy Machinery could be the next SmackDown Tag Team Champions. If Daniel and Eric don't retain, it's not to say that they won't because this is only their second title defense on the show, second title defense on pay per view. And again, they've only been champions for 2 months, but we know how WWE can be when it comes to switching champions and playing hot tomatoes with the titles. But I will give Daniel a lot of credit for what he's done with the titles. He's really helped put the titles back on the map um, to the point where SmackDown Tag Team titles are starting to feel just as good as it was around that 2016, 2017 mark, back you know, when the brand split first came back, and then the rivalry with the Usos and one of the greatest rivalries of all time. They were trading back and forth the titles, but it was an incredible rivalry. It's starting to feel back like it was with that. And we've seen a lot of SmackDown Tag Team title changes this year. The Bar actually started off as champions, then they lost to the Shane McMahon and The Miz at the Royal Rumble. Then they lost to the Usos. The Usos lost it to the Hardys. Now we got Dane, Bryan, and Eric. But like I said, I think for this match right here, Heavy Machinery is gonna. If Daniel and Eric don't retain, I think Heavy Machinery is gonna come out on top. I think they're gonna actually win the gold this time. If they don't win it now, then they might win it at a bigger pay per view like SummerSlam or something. But I do see them, winning the tag team gold. Hopefully, they can actually start inserting some more teams so that we don't start getting repeats of the same teams going against each other 24/7. We saw a good tag team summit that they had on SmackDown where Owens really showed his power when he did a double suplex to Xavier and Daniel Bryan at the same time, and he actually won the match. So, normally when they have a team win before the pay per view, they usually end up losing at the pay per view. But I think this one right here, I do think they're like the heavy favorite to win this. If Daniel and Eric don't retain the belt, so we'll see what happens with that. But I'm really looking forward to that match because I do think that it's going to be a hell of a tag team match, hell of a tag team triple threat match right there. It's definitely going to be a hell of a match, and can't wait to see how they play it out. Next up, we got the Revival with the Usos. I think for this one, the Usos might actually win the gold. Several title changes happening on this show. One of them is mainly titles like this. I think for this match, the Usos are definitely. I think the Usos are going to win this time. I think they're going to win the Raw Tag Team titles because I mean the only reason why the Revival were given the Raw Tag Team titles for the second time was just so they can continue their feud with the Usos, and by them being under Shane McMahon with this whole thing with Shane taking up so much of the roster, having so many guys on the side. Just, first of all, sadly, I think this match is ultimately the pre-show, but I think the Usos this is going to be their time to win the titles. And I love the Usos and everything. I do. I just think that they need to do. They just need to bump up their tag team divisions. I mean, because if you got the same two teams who've been basically feuding with each other for a while now, ever since the Usos first came to Raw back in April, is how long they've been feuding. They didn't actually have a match until I think after Money in the Bank. That's when they had their first tag team match against each other. And the Revival actually won, but they've been going at it for a while. And it's like when you constantly see two teams as great as these two teams, the Revival is an amazing tag team. They're one of the best tag teams to date. One of the best tag teams out there right now. When you see two great teams like that constantly facing each other, it becomes redundant. And I don't think it will really matter that much to people whether the revival retains or not because we've seen this match so many times. Whether there's other teams included or not, we've seen these two guys face each other multiple times. And that's just kind of what makes you lose the interest. But I do think it's definitely still going to be a hell of a tag team match. Um, but something's telling me that the Revival's going to lose. Unless the Revival uh, cheat their way to winning, cheat their way to retaining the belt, I think the Revival is going to lose the titles. They weren't meant to keep the titles. As and as we know, they they're not even they didn't even re-sign with WWE. And I think that's one of the things that you would know based off that as well. By them not re-signing with WWE, you can clear. I definitely see them losing the belts because unless they re-sign with WWE, they're not keeping the belts. And if they do keep the belts, they're still going to drop them soon because they didn't resign with WWE. I don't think their contract expires until next year. But still, just because they didn't resign with WWE, I don't see them retaining the belt. You could tell based off just little things that happen if someone resigned or not. Like the example of what we've seen with Cryonis and Gallows, which I'll get to in a moment. But with these guys, unless they resign with the company, I don't see them retaining the belt. And if they do retain the belts, I see them losing the belts very soon. And it's a shame how they've done them as well. Another team, first of all, the Revival are barely featured on Raw. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that most of the time they're featured on Raw, they're losing. Um, and this time it's not going to be any different. It shows you how they treated the Raw tag team division, both tag team divisions, both shows. At least with SmackDown, they've done a much better job now. But with Raw, they still need some work to do. With the Revival, I don't see them retaining. I think this will probably be the time they actually lose. So where do we go from here? Maybe the Usos might lose the titles to the Warriors or something. Maybe they might finally bring AOP back, which they have yet to do. we'll see. So next up, we have Bailey versus Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss for the SmackDown Women's Championship. The same way with Aleister Black and Cesaro was a Raw guy versus SmackDown guy. Raw and Aleister versus SmackDown. Once again, this is what kind of makes it pointless when you have Bailey facing Alexa Bliss in a rematch from Stomping Grounds. Except this time, it's a handicap match with Nikki Cross being included. Bailey's going to retain the belt here. There's rumors that Sasha Banks will make her return at Extreme Rules. So it's going to be interesting to see if that actually happens. And there's also rumors that she's going to start a feud with Bailey for the SmackDown Women's Championship. I guess she's going to turn heel. I don't know if she's going to do it that very night or not, but that's something that they tried to do last year. And we've seen how that turned out. It backfired. I don't know what the issue was, but they tried it. They tried it, and it just it just failed because it was a lot. It was like so much that happened, and it was like very confusing. They fucked up the whole thing. But you know, it's been a while. We haven't seen Sasha Banks since WrestleMania, so it'll be interesting for her to make a return in the Street Rules to help out Bailey. But either way, I would have seen Bailey retain anyway because Alexa's from Raw, which kind of defeats the purpose of um, this match in the first place. And then, not to mention, you know, if she loses again, is this going to officially start the tension between Alexa and Nikki? We know that this is what it's going to eventually come to. I don't know why they continuously do these storylines with Alexa. It's become very repeated. First, they had this happen when she was with Nia. Well, except with Nia, Nia wasn't really like her sidekick, but she would call Nia like her best friend. Basically, the same thing she called Nikki. But the thing with that was, it was the same premise, but I wouldn't say Nia was doing like her dirty bidding for her. But it was almost like the exact same thing. She had it the same thing with Mickey James. And Mickey was actually before Nia, if I'm not mistaken. She was with Mickey first, then she was with Mickey, then she was with Nia. Now she's doing this with Alexa. I mean, how many? Now she's doing this with Nikki. It's like how many times are we gonna keep saying the same thing? So, and I really love Nikki Cross, and I'm glad she's getting all this TV time. She's one of the very few people out of like the six people that got called to the main roster. Her, she's she's one of the main people that's getting TV time. Aside from Heavy Machinery and aside from Aleister Black and Ricochet, EC3, of course, Lacey Evans. But I really like what they're doing with her. But at the same time, this isn't going to lead to anything as it pertains to her title match. So Bayley's going to come out on top in this match, and there you go. Next up, you have, and again, this is just a random order. I'm not looking at any paper or anything. You have Kofi Kingston versus Samoa Joe for the WWE Championship. You know, I think Kobe's going to retain here, but the biggest thing is that Paul Heyman came out on Raw and said that Brock Lesnar would be cashing in his Money in the Bank. Now he said this before when it came to when it came to Super Showdown, and we saw what happened with that. Now the real question is it actually going to happen this time? Because he said this before, and it wasn't the case because Seth Rollins stopped him. Now there's rumors that because of Fox deal with SmackDown Live, Brock Lesnar is most likely going to go after Kofi Kingston. So what may happen here is that Brock may actually catch it on Kobe, win the WWE Championship from Kobe after Kobe beats Samoa Joe. Or another thing that could happen is that Kobe could beat Samoa Joe clean, and then Samoa Joe could attack Kobe after the match, and then Brock could just come out and catch in on Kobe just like that. But there's a little swerve into who he's going to cash in on, when exactly it's going to happen. The biggest person that is being said is Kobe Kingston, but you also have the factor of Seth Rollins. Because Seth Rollins in a mixed tag team match, I don't really think that would happen. So we'll see how this plays out. But the bigger question here more so is who exactly and if this is actually going to happen, or if this is just another way for them to get ratings. Well, of course, in this is a pay per view, but it's more people like they've done before. Um, so we'll see what happens. I don't want to see Kobe get squashed by Brock Lesnar. And quite frankly, Brock Lesnar being WWE champion at this point, him being champion in general, is something I'm sick of. But regardless, it's gonna happen. It's most likely gonna end up happening. I doubt they're gonna have Brock Lesnar fail his cash in, even though they strictly said that this year they were gonna have a new up and coming star. They were going to heavily push the next person who wins the Money in the Bank, since they've already had the last two people win it failed their briefcase, Braun Strowman and Baron Corbin. They were going to have this one actually heavily pushed, but it ended up being Brock Lesnar, which was a slap into a face, which was a slap into a face, which was a slap in the face to all the guys who were actually in the match. So it's just like I don't know. I don't know. Um, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I think Kobe Kingston though is going to retain the title. I think he's going to retain against Joe. Um, obviously, he's going to retain because Joe's from Raw, and this goes back to the whole SmackDown and Raw thing. I don't get why they keep having guys from SmackDown facing guys from Raw. It defeats the purpose of the brand split. So you want to put it in here and do that. But he's from Raw, so he's not going to win regardless. Even though I do feel bad for Joe because um, the many times Joe's been given championship opportunities and he keeps losing each and every time. No matter if it's a WWE championship or Universal Championship, it's like you lose faith in him because of the way that they booked him in terms of that. And he just lost the United States title to Ricochet. So it's really sad when you think about it. Kofi Kingston is definitely going to come out on top. Now, whether Brock Lesnar cashes in on him or not is something that we'll have to see. I hope he doesn't, but we'll see how that plays out. Next up, you have um, AJ Styles versus Ricochet for the United States title. Now, oh man, AJ Styles just turned heel 2 weeks ago on Raw. He turned heel. It was actually last week. He turned heel and reformed the club with Carl Anderson and Gallows after losing to Ricochet. Um, after losing to Ricochet on Raw, the match was restarted when his foot was on the rope and he hit the phenomenal forearm. And now this is technically third time they're facing each other. Because first we seen them face each other the week before that, and Styles won with the phenomenal form. Now, then they had their little United States title match last week. They were trying to hype him up and get him and cause tension between him and Ricochet, which is why AJ Styles slapped him in the backstage. Ricochet slapped him back in his car as he goes. He said he can beat you. He can beat you this time. They were trying to hype him up and he turned heel. I think Ricochet is going to retain the belt here. I don't really see why AJ would need to win the United States Championship back at this point. I don't really get the point of that. And if they were going to give Ricochet the belt at Stomping Grounds from Hill, it really wouldn't make any sense for him to lose the belt this early to AJ Styles. Even though AJ Styles just turned heel, there's different ways to go about it. I mean, to have him immediately beat Ricochet for the title is just something that I don't see happening. And if you guys remember from AJ's first heel run, when he turned heel back in 2016, of course, the way he turned heel was the exact same way he turned heel this time, where he just attacked him, and the Bullet Club was right there watching, and they helped him out. When you look back at the first time he turned heel, he did beat John Cena at Money in the Bank that year, but then he lost at Battleground when they had their little 6-man tag match. And then he beat John Cena again at SummerSlam. And then he beat Dean Ambrose at the time before John Moxley won the WWE Championship. But the bottom line though is with that actually put him in the main event title picture. This is a mid card championship that they're almost making it seem as if it's in the main event title picture. And I just don't see the purpose of AJ winning the title this fast. I think Ricochet is going to come on top now. This is actually good for Ricochet to be feuding with guys like this early. This is a huge boost for him. They've really been pushing Ricochet to the moon since he's come to the main roster. So this is a huge step up for him. I hope that they don't continue this though. One thing that WWE continuously do is whenever someone, someone at a pay per view or something for a title or even retain a title, they tend to continue the story and keep it going. And I just don't want to see them face each other again at SummerSlam. Not to say it would be a bad match, but it just would be very repeated. And that's the problem that we continuously keep having is when they continuously keep having the same guys each other over and over again. I don't get the point. But for this match right here, um, definitely for this match right here, Ricochet is going to retain. I almost forgot about the Bobby Lashley and Braun Strowman match. Let me talk about that real quickly. Last man standing match between the two. Braun Strowman's going to come out on top. There's just no question about it. Um, the bigger story here is what they did on Raw, and they tried to make it seem as if it was like a real angle. Like the way the commentary did it, they did it perfect. It was a poem. It was a brilliant idea. We saw Bobby Lashley come back this past Monday on Raw and beat Rey Mysterio in a squash match after what happened. They couldn't believe that he came back so fast, and Braun hadn't even seen Braun since last week. But Braun is going to come out on top. I doubt they'll have Bobby Lashley win this match. Braun is definitely going to win this match. So next up, you have Roman Reigns and The Undertaker versus Drew McIntyre and Shane McMahon. Roman Reigns and The Undertaker is going to come on top. There's rumors that Bray Wyatt would make his return during that match when it's over and go after Roman and The Undertaker. Don't really get why. We've seen him feud with Roman before, back in 2015. It was a good feud when they went against each other, but I don't want to see that again. We've seen them face each other many times, and even though he's only faced The Undertaker once at this rate, the fact that The Undertaker is even still in WWE just shows how desperate they are to boost ratings and keep people around and try to keep viewership. At the Undertaker's rate, I said this a long time ago. He should have retired a long time ago. To be honest, there's different things that people say. Some people say he should have retired once he lost to Brock at WrestleMania and Street ended. If you ask me, I think his retirement should have been because at that time you can argue he should have retired that time, but it really should have been once he lost to Roman. And the only reason I say that is because the way he left the ring. That was a clear sign of retirement. You had people crying in the audience. And it's like to have him come back last year was kind of like make that whole thing seem completely pointless. So if anything, that should have been his official retirement there. It wasn't a good match, but the fact that he was getting hip surgery at the time, that would have been a better time for him to retire. Not now where he's just constantly coming back, being thrown in matches and stuff like that. But you know, like I said, the Undertaker, Roman Reigns are gonna come out on top. I do hope that this puts an end to the long feud. I mean, Shane is he's nearly feuding with everybody at this point, but I hope this puts an end to his thing with Roman because, and I hope this also puts an end to the Roman and Drew thing as well because it's been dragging way too long ever since before WrestleMania, going into WrestleMania. It's just been way, way too long. Next up, let me see. Eric Reynolds has not on the show. Next up, we have the final match of the card. Um, Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins versus Baron Corbin, and Lacey Evans for the winner take all match. Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins going to retain. I do does need to be an end to them feuding with Baron and Lacey Evans because I'm sick and tired of them going against these guys. It's the third straight time they're facing them, and sick of it at this point. They need to move on and have them face someone else. It's really made their titles seem stale when you have them feuding with guys like this and always being drawn to the main event title picture. People are saying that they think the main event is going to be this match or that match, but the Universal title is definitely going to be the main event unless they do a thing where Brock Lesnar, because of him cashing in on Kobe, potentially, if he comes out and cashes, if he actually does it, unless they do a thing where that's the main event because of Brock Lesnar cashing in, they just wanted to end off the show like that, or unless they do it where he comes out and screw Seth Rollins, which I just don't see happening, especially in the mixed tag team match. And that's cool. I don't see him just coming out and attacking Brock Lesnar. I mean, attacking Seth Rollins. But we'll see what happens. I think Seth and Becky are definitely going to retain. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Wasn't trying to make this video that long, but it's like 10 matches on the card, and I was trying to go as fast as I could. We'll see what happens. I might do a review for Extreme Rules and sign off. Very nice effects. Like, comment, subscribe, and